Now, if you're not a fan of rats or spiders, you might want to skip this one, because this week we speak to an expert about overcoming your phobias.
A phobia is a fear of an outcome regarding a particular situation, scenario, or an object. And that fear actually debilitates you. And when it compounds over a long period of time, that is known as a phobia.
Yeah, but having said that, I mean, what's the difference between the fear itself and an actual phobia?
Ooh, I love that. So you know a fear, right? It's like fight or flight. So if I'm afraid of doing a talk or a presentation, in that moment I'm dealing with increased heart rate, I'm dealing with sweaty palms, and I'm a bit fearful. What will the crowd say? What will I say? But you, more often than not, you will fulfill that action and then go and do it and figure out a mechanism to cope. Whereas a phobia actually impacts your behavior, your thoughts, and your life and those around you. And when I say it's debilitating, it means you're losing out on experiences in life, potentially, or scenarios in life that actually hold you back from growing, flourishing, and experiencing new things. And it takes you into a space of literal being frozen, so that you mentally, emotionally, physically are not interested in anything to do with that, and you rather want to run than face and deal or engage in that experience.
So at the root cause of a phobia, I mean, what is it?
Oof, the root cause, as far where does it come from? What is the essence of a phobia? Now, there's no particular scientific fact around it comes from X, but we do know that genetics play a role and environment plays a role in developing phobias. So genetics. If my parents have phobias or agoraphobic or different types of phobias, fear of heights, fear of spiders, fear of snakes or whatever it may be, and I notice their behaviors as I grow up when they're experiencing those scenarios, that influences me. As kids, we learn through observation rather than what you tell me. Very clear. And that is from the genetic part. But the environmental part boils down to maybe it hurt. Maybe you got bitten by a spider and there was a wound that got infected. Maybe you fell off a height and the reaction of everybody else around you initiated this response of, don't do it, it's not going to be okay, etc. So environment and genetics play a key role in it. But one thing that very few people talk about is that the base of it all boils down to what you, even as a child or as an adult or as a teenager, are being exposed to from dealing with it. And that is where we find there's a very big discrepancy. Because even though I might be afraid of a spider, if I don't see my mom or my dad jumping on a counter, screaming like they're in an opera and throwing every pot and pan to try to kill the spider or mouse, I might not react that way as I grow up. So it's what we observe, and that's where the root cause of it lies.
But is it rational?
Ooh, rational. Science says that a phobia is defined as an irrational response to a scenario or an object. And I'm like, yes, I agree with that, because it is irrational. Where it limits your thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions, it is irrational. It doesn't make sense. But guess what? It's rational to me. It's real to me. And many people forget this. So I agree with the scientific definition, but from a human perspective, it's real. It does impact me. I am scared, man. I literally am frozen. If I'm scared of heights, some people won't take a job on the 10th floor of a building because they're afraid of heights. So it is real to me. So is it rational? To me, yes. The science says it's irrational, and that's only because it impacts your behavior to an extreme.
How can you then manage it short of therapy? Because a lot of people are too proud for some reason to actually go to a therapist and say, look, I have a phobia problem. So how can I on a daily basis manage that extreme fear?
When I'm really sick, I'm going to go to a doctor. If my waistline is a little bit too big, I'm going to find a dietitian. If I'm lazy and not exercising, I'm going to find a qualified trainer. If I am not dealing mentally and emotionally, I'm going to find the right therapist. That's just me, because I appreciate the benefit of having the expert to give me the tools and the skills that I need. So the underlying base, yes, is cognitive behavioral therapy and other therapies. There's even something called BWRT. So it's called brain work recursive therapy. And that's a new way of dealing with fears and phobias and, of course, behaviors that are not conducive to your values. But outside of that, what can we do? Number one, we need to acknowledge it. Own it. Number two, you don't have to delve deeper to try to identify where does it come from. Is it from my gogo? Is it from my opa? Is it from my friends? that's not important. What is important is that what is your response to it? Do you find that your hands literally go cold? Do you find that your breathing rate increases? Do you find that you don't breathe? Because in that moment, the practice of mindfulness becomes your secret weapon. The practice of acknowledging the situation for what it is and literally beginning to ask yourself questions that allow you to question that scenario immediately. That becomes the skill that we need to practice. It's not easy, but breathing, so the box breathing method, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold it, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds in. Number one, because that will allow you to activate your sympathetic and nervous systems and decrease the adrenaline, and that'll allow you then just to be a little bit calmer. You're still not going to like the situation. Number two, the mindfulness around it. I see the mouse or spider or snake there. I see the ledge over there. I'm not there yet, but I see it. Great. And then what you then do is begin to become mindful and ask these questions. One is, can this thing hurt me right now if I'm a distance away? Two is, how will it impact me? Three is this actually okay, or should I just run or not run? So you ask yourself logical questions that are relevant to you. And then the fourth way is to really begin to potentially condition yourself. So if you're afraid of dogs, and I know this growing up in Kliptown, I heard dog barking, man, I would be faster than Usain Bolt running away from this dog and jumping over walls. So perhaps it starts off with standing 10 meters away or across the road from a dog and observing a dog and just standing still. A few days later, a few weeks later, the dog is in a yard in a fence and I go closer across the road onto the other pavement. It's still a distance. The next thing would be is the dog could bark, could do whatever the dog needs to do. And then you get a little bit closer, but you still maintain distance. The next step could be is that you could hold the leash of the dog.
Provided it's your dog, of course.
Provided it's your dog or your friend's dog, you know. And then in that process, you begin to build up those habits, and that's what brain work recursive therapy is all about. So when you look at it, you begin to readjust the behavior through logical thoughts and questions potentially, but through mindfulness and breathing. Those become your top 3 weapons that you could utilize.
Now, for anyone out there who is struggling with the issue of phobias, where can they get help?
Help starts off with identifying where it is. Number 2 is if this is seriously debilitating for you, then you need to go and find clinical help. You need to chat to a psychologist, chat to a therapist, and reach out for clinical help. But if you're just looking for these lifestyle behaviors, these well-being behaviors, I call them the well-doing behaviors. Check out myhealth360.co.za. There's a whole bunch of information, content, and videos available, but access to chat to a small group of people that are also dealing with the same scenario. I always say, collective wisdom and community wisdom is priceless in the greater scheme of things.